We first used the goats as an experiment. We wanted to get a grant from Duke Energy. They give these small grants away. And there's a park sort of behind Drayton and Beaumont, in between those two. And eventually Powell will come through there with a trail. You know, they're extending the Drayton Trail. They're going to try to come through Beaumont. And this was a beautiful bluff over a river, though you couldn't see it. It was 6 to 8 feet tall kudzu. And we thought, well, we got $5,000 from Duke. We found a farmer who would rent us goats. He was getting ready to sell them all. And he said, well, we'll do this once. And they did a fabulous job. It was, we went from you can't see to completely cleared. Now, you have to go back. It's not, you don't kill the kudzu forever. But if you leave the goats in the spot, now, the goats have shelter and water and supplemental food. But if you leave them in a spot where they've eaten all the kudzu will, of course, immediately start to grow back. And if they can eat those little shoots, then it weakens the vine to the point where you're killing kudzu. When COVID hit, all of a sudden we could no longer have volunteer events, but we had work to do. So we shifted to all goat labor, because we could put the goats in and check on them, get our acreage cleared, and not expose anyone to a virus. We were in Converse Heights, which is a very nice neighborhood, and they have a ravine that goes almost the length of one section of the neighborhood, and their goal is to return it to a forest, a natural Piedmont forest. So it was full of invasives. Homeless people were camping in there, full of trash. We found some marijuana plants. So we put the goats in Converse Heights, and it's right after the schools, where everything shuts down. So all the families are home with their kids. School is not in session, and everybody's going nuts. And every hour there would be 30 people standing watching the goats, because there was nothing to do with kids, and so they would come down and goat visit. Then we ran into problems with vandalism because the teenagers were home, and they were knocking the fences down to see where the goats would go. So we created a goat patrol. And neighbors volunteered, and they took an hourly shift. So you're the 10 to 11 shift, and you just say that between 10 and 11 I'll go down and check on the goats. And they got t-shirts, and they were very proud, and they named the goats and really got into this. And then we had a guy doing it at night, so keeping the teens away, and it was a win-win. The goats are sort of our first team, and they will go into an area that volunteers literally cannot access.
Good point.
And as long as we have them fenced around the perimeter, then we leave them. And then once the goats are through, then volunteers can come in. We were working in Park Hills recently. I think you were on that.
I was.
You were on that day. And the amount of trash we found and the bazaar of trash items that we found, it was just so different from any other event we'd had like that. And I realized the goats had eaten all the greenery, all the invasives, and then we were finding the trash that had been underneath that for, in some cases, years and years.
Going to this tree. You just got to pick a place, don't you?
Yeah.
Do you like being a math major, Lucy? Yeah. Of course. I almost mind it, but I don't have time. It's rough. Multi and vectors so far are rough. I have Dr. Grosser from multi, and then shoot.
first we're trying to, and we'll have to, I don't know what kind of tools you got or anything. I knew you got a machine. The here you have to, we'll have to either get you some, yeah, and I don't, the first thing, you kind of just strip the leaves off of it, just so you can see what you're working with.
He's got to clean that off where you see what he's doing.
Yeah, you get that there where you can see.
Get the snakes out of the way.
Yeah. And I've seen some little bitty snakes under this stuff, but nothing serious. And we'll have to get you some of this too.
This is his herbicide. It's called a dauber.
Yeah. But it's like
50-50.
yeah, this is 50% the full strength Roundup, and then 50% water, and got some blue dye in it just to see.
Okay.
We're just getting it. I'm just getting it at the ground level much I can. And just make sure you daub it instead of sliding it, or just tear that felt off of it.
Just kind of push it down.
Push it down. Now some of these, I got some big loppers, but some of these we'll probably have to get with a chainsaw. So I'm gonna, and you just have to be real careful because you know the lives. No, don't want to damage. So I'm gonna. So that did pretty good. Yeah. And pine tree, sometimes you have to be real careful because this stuff comes off easy. This looks like it's gonna be okay.
What it means, he can pull the bark off.
Yeah.
This English ivy makes its own super glue.
Yeah.
This ivy does not take anything from this tree. It's getting all its nutrients from the ground. The only thing this thing does is crawl up through here, wrap around. You get a windstorm, you get 300 or 400 extra pounds of weight on it. Especially ice storm.
I'm just kind of just getting that out of the way where I can see.
Now the rule of thumb is about 30 minutes from the time you cut it to the time you paint it. We like to do it as soon as we can.
Yeah.
But
Kind of like skin, it'll grow.
it's
Close
like
it back up.
It's like your skin. It'll scab up. That plant will scab back up. As soon as you cut it.
Here we are going down. I mean, this is, again, classic. This is Spartanburg water access right here, down to the sewer lines, and so we'll use this as access for the trail too. And you can see, I mean, I came out here, I guess a couple years ago, maybe last year, and just came exploring, and it's already kind of trail. Definitely set up to get down there.
So the RAISE grant is a federal grant process. RAISE stands for Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. This was a grant through the U.S. Department of Transportation. And so Spartanburg County, with PAL's support, applied for this grant and received it.
So the route that we've chosen for this, for the RAISE grant, we will follow largely the Fair Forest Creek. I should say that this is about 14.5 miles total of trail, and also road improvements. That a majority of those miles are along the Fair Forest Creek, which is a really kind of underutilized creek. In fact, I've been thinking about this, like people might not even know exactly where it is as they're moving about town. But if you have some landmarks, the Dollar General on WOE-Zell comes just before, as you're heading west, just before the Fair Forest Creek. On WOE-Zell, there at O'Reilly Auto Parts, that's where the Fair Forest Creek crosses. There are some other crossings that you may have noticed, but again, it's really underutilized. So we're excited to really open this up to the recreational use. The trail will follow the creek as much as possible, and though it may deviate occasionally to accommodate some kind of terrain issue or something like that. And there will also be, so that goes again from Arcadia to South Liberty Street in the city and up to C.C. Woodson. We would like in the future to get out to Croft State Park by way of Fair Forest Creek, but that is not, unfortunately, as part of this funding. Okay. Which happens. But there's the creek. Some new housing going in over here. This was, a lot of this part of it was kind of undeveloped, but as you continue downstream, there are little communities, some apartment communities along the way, so some larger developments, and certainly like right through the center of town is going to be heavily accessed by the population in the city. So we're going right across the general population of the city, from northwest to southeast along this creek. Yeah, I know. This is probably the railroad kudzu. Two sources of kudzu in Spartanburg County. One was the Soil Conservation Corps, and one was the railroads. Soil Conservation Corps did their first project in 1930 in Spartanburg County to try to deal with the erosion from the cotton planting and the like, agricultural erosion. And the way they addressed it was to plant kudzu to stabilize the banks. And stabilize the banks, that's for sure. All right, so we're seemingly as far from roads as we can get back here. Very quiet, not hearing any traffic, any noise. We have the creek, and that's about the loudest thing we have going. But about every 1.25 miles, 1.5 miles, this trail will cross a road, and so that creates that access too. More trailheads for people to come in. So we'll develop more trailheads as part of this, as well as trail. But that's a good feature, and then it goes directly through the kind of the prime urban area, lots of population. Again, that has not much in the way of recreational facilities, and the more places you can get onto the trail, the better. Within reason, of course. We don't want too many because then you kind of have like it's sort of chaos. So this is really already set up to have those sort of nice, well distance, well proportioned trailheads along the way. So that's been a part of it too.